Methane emissions are getting a lot of attention these days as part of climate policies, particularly attached to oil and gas production. And both the Alberta government, federal government have a 45% reduction in methane emissions by 2025. The Alberta government rolled out a program on Friday to help companies buy the equipment to actually implement methane emission reduction. We're going to be talking to Darcy Spady, who is the head of the company that's going to be managing that program. So welcome to the interview, Darcy.
Thank you. Thank you, Markham. Pleasure to be here.
Well, look, why don't you give us a quick overview of the program and what your company will actually be doing?
Yeah, our company will be managing the implementation of a program under the TIER fund in Alberta, and it's approximately $25 million to be deployed to the industry. And we're calling it the MTIP, Methane Technology Implementation Program. And basically it's a way for producers, we have to call them operators. So producers or operators, whatever term you want to use, get direct funding to do things that pragmatically reduce methane entering the atmosphere. And there's a number of technologies with that, but definable, easy to do, and have a solid impact. That's what the program will do.
Now, my understanding is I've read a fair amount and done some interviews about methane emission detection technology, which is ramping up. I guess there's some new technologies involved. What about on the prevention or reduction side? What kind of equipment are we talking about?
So you're absolutely right. Detection is first, and once you know what you have, then you have to know what to do about it. So there's various culprits. Ironically, that most of us in the petroleum engineering world have designed and noted as we installed them, right? So it's not like they're surprises. But basically, we have tank venting, which is a big emission source. We have pneumatic devices, which is a big emission source. Compressors. Those are kind of the big three hits. And so there can be a lot of smaller versions, but they fall into those three big buckets. There's also a couple of other ones that concern me, and that's surface casing vent flow and post-frac flowback desanding that are part of this program. Maybe a little bit more of my vendetta, but those are also emission sources. But the big three are tanks, pneumatics, and compression.
Now, $25 million for an industry this big is not a whole lot of money, and your program will provide up to $1 million per operator. Is there a particular focus? Is there maybe an intent on the part of government to expand the program if it turns out to be a success?
Yeah, I hope there's expansion upon success. I would suggest that the focus perhaps initially started out making sure that everybody, including the little guys, could participate, because eventually they're going to have to be in a regulatory environment where they have to have some of these upgrades done. So we want to make sure that across the board, not just the huge multinational operators, but everybody gets a chance to retrofit things that need updating. And there's so many of these little things that add up to a massive number. And that's what's kind of exciting about this. It's very practical. So if I've got a pneumatic device out in the field that's chugging away all winter long, shooting little bits of methanol into my line to keep it from freezing, it's taking sales gas, and every time it goes, releases, it's doing something mechanical. If I've got that thing, there's a good chance that it might get stuck or jammed or be stuck open. So why not replace it with a solar technology that is actuator driven, solar powered, and it doesn't rely on my sales gas to make it run. So that's just one of those 9 technologies, very practical, very pragmatic, actually leaves a little bit more gas in the line, and probably more importantly, keeps that methane out of the atmosphere.
Darcy, last question. One of the things we know that the pandemic has really illustrated for us is the small guys in Alberta, in the industry in general, are in trouble. And they would probably be, I'm guessing, the ones who are least able to do these kinds of upgrades compared to the big companies that have the resources to do it. Would that be fair to say?
I'm going to disagree with you on that. I've been a little guy. I've been the CEO of a little public company. Yeah, they're in trouble, but they're smaller, they're more agile, and these sorts of things in this program, I think a lot of them fall in the operational budget, not the capital budget. So if I'm XYZ Oil in Alberta at 5 or 10,000 barrels a day, I can't quite get my investors to put a capital program together to drill, but I can probably use operational money or cash flow from operations to do a bunch of improvements, clean up around the house, shall we say, improvements that make me a little more efficient, that keep rural Albertans and local manufacturers busy making the products, installing the products. A lot of little smart things that we can do in the meantime, perhaps before we get those drilling budgets. So yeah, it's tough times. Cash flow has been a little bit better with a little bit of stability on the price in Western Canada. So there's a lot of people that can say, you know, I can spend fairly small amounts of money doing this, which happens to be the right thing, which gets me ahead of regulations. So I think the medium-sized person has about as much wherewithal as the massive guys who have to do everything in a gigantic form. So I think it's perfectly timed. I'm quite happy about that.
Actually, this will be the last question because it's kind of related to the previous one. But does industry now recognize that methane emissions are a problem and that they need to be cleaned up?
Oh, that's a great question. And industry, I'm going to start globally and I'm going to go to nationally. So I've spent a lot of time in the last 3 years traveling the globe. Yes, industry recognizes globally that there's an issue, that methane is a problem. The UN SDGs help us identify it. The world is moving that direction, the Paris Accord. We can complain about it or we can do something about it. And I'll jump down to the Canadian industry. The Canadian industry realizes it's an issue. The regulatory environment has been put in place to make it addressable or addressed, like it or not, we're going to do it right. So I think the awareness is definitely there that it's a problem. And what I like is there's a lot of happy solutions that actually will make us global leaders in a space. 5 years from now, we'll be well ahead of the curve. So, you know, take it back. Were seatbelts good? Nah. I remember when they came in, a lot of complaining. A lot of guys didn't want to do it, you know, buckle them up and sit on top. But over the last 20 years, you know, who doesn't use seatbelts? So I think this is kind of exciting in that as Canadians, especially the smaller Canadian companies, we can be absolutely global leaders. And 5 years from now, that might put us in a whole different setting on a global viewpoint to do with UN SDGs and other things that could really matter.
Well, Darcy, good luck with the program. It sounds like a very good program, and it sounds like it does need some more capital. We hope the government will put that in, and so everybody can have make use of the funds. Thank you very much, and we'll look forward to chatting with you in the future.
Thank you so much, Markham, for giving me the opportunity.